it's Natasha here from the Nextwork team, and I'm so excited to be doing Project 7 of the 7-Day DevOps Challenge with you all today. How is everyone doing? How are you feeling about the final day of the DevOps Challenge? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Hi everyone, says H. Can't wait for this one. Wow. H says, yeah, it's the last day. Time really flies when you're having fun. Thank you so much. I've had so much fun this past week. Hi everyone from Sachin. Hey Sachin, good to see you here. Oh my goodness, let's go. 7 for 7. Whew. We got Manity D. Hi, saying greetings. Oh, thanks Nat for doing another session. Plaxidus says hello, excited for the final day. Gangada says hi all. This is so sweet. I've even got my little Nextwork shirt ready today. I feel really cool wearing the shirt. And we've got Ode saying, how are you? Hello. Hello, Ode. Hey, Niobi's here. Let's go. Wow, 7 for 7 for you as well. I'm so pumped that we're all here gathered today to do this the last project of our 7-Day DevOps Challenge. Thank you so much. I have so much energy, and let's do it. Now the difficulty level, you know, it's gonna be hot today, but really I have a feeling that if you've done the first 6 projects of this series, it's not gonna feel hot. It's gonna be like, oh, this is the wrap up, this is the finale of all of these things that we've done. You've learned so many new concepts now across projects 1 to 6, especially the first 5 projects. Actually, project number 6, which we did yesterday, is a bit of an optional extra. So projects 1 to 5, you've learned so many new concepts. And in this project today, we are going to use AWS CodePipeline to automate your entire CI/CD workflow into one seamless process. So how do you bring them all together into one workflow so that they can all work together and go from one stage to another without you having to touch anything? So it really brings together everything you've learned in the DevOps Challenge so far, your source code repository, your build process, your deployment process, they're all gonna work together automatically. So what is a CI/CD pipeline? So a CI/CD pipeline, which you might be quite familiar with over the last week, it automatically builds, tests, and deploys your code changes so that instead of you having to manually push a code change and then manually going to CodeBuild to build the project and then manually going to CodeDeploy to deploy the project, what if CodePipeline automates that flow for you? This means faster releases, fewer errors, and more time to focus on writing great code rather than the actual management of the deployment process and going from one stage to the next. So CI/CD pipeline is truly about just making that flow of code very seamless and automatic for you. And yeah, in today's project in CodePipeline, we're gonna make that happen, all right? So we got CodePipeline looking real cute at the bottom of our diagram, and it's connected to the 3 super key parts of our CI/CD pipeline architecture so far. It's connected to GitHub, which is the source stage. It's connected to CodeBuild, the build stage, and it's connected to CodeDeploy, the iconic deploy stage that actually makes your web app available to the world. So because it's connected to these 3 stages, it can automatically say, let me grab the source code from the source stage I'm connected to, let me throw that source code into CodeBuild, which I'm also connected to, so that I can build my code automatically. And then once it's built, guess what else is connected to? CodeDeploy, so that you can automatically deploy the output of CodeBuild. Okay, so CodePipeline is really here to just connect the 3 and automate their connection so you don't have to manually click and start either of those stages. This is gonna be awesome. I can't wait. What it means to us is that by the end of this project, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a change to our web app. We're gonna push that change, and then automatically that change is gonna be that change will automatically just show up in our final deployed web app without us having to touch CodeBuild, without us having to touch CodeDeploy. So yeah, let's get started. So I'd highly recommend going for high touch if you're a complete beginner or you like having more detailed guidance and explanations. All right, so we got high touch open now. Ooh, sorry, my downloads folder opened up. I was not expecting that. All right. So I'm just looking at the chat for a second here. I'll just open this up and I'll have a look at the chat. It's been so cool seeing everyone engaging in the chat. Thank you so much. This is so sweet, everyone. Thank you. All right, so we've got a few people coming in already too. We got Naomi saying it's the last day. Yeah, it's really the last day. And after today, I can sleep at a normal time. Ah, excited for that. Man. That's exciting. We've got H saying, haha, same. H, where are you based? Where are you based? I just realized I've never asked that question. And Timo AI Studio, hi, how are you? Hope you're fine. Thank you so much. I'm so great. I'm so happy today. We got Sebastian saying dub grind. Yeah, it absolutely is, man. Are you joining us with this project? That would be awesome. Okay, so what is CodePipeline? We've talked about how it automates things. So instead of us having to manually build your project, manually track the build artifact, manually start deployments, manually restart processes, that's the current relationship we have between CodeBuild and CodeDeploy. They each automate their thing. CodeBuild automates the building, CodeDeploy automates the deploying, and we're like, I want the connection between you two to be automated too. So that's why CodePipeline is here to solve that problem of us having to manually start both processes. So CodePipeline is just going to make things automatic for us. Okay, so across steps 1 to 4 of this project today, we'll be setting up the foundations of our pipeline. And let's set up the source, which is GitHub. Let's set up the build, which is CodeBuild. Let's set up CodeDeploy, which is the deploy stage. So we're going to do that across steps 1 to 4 today. And then we've got step 5 here later on. So we've got a few steps to do today. So we've got steps 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. to actually create and run the pipeline after we do our CI/CD architecture setup. All right, so we got all of this chunky stuff at the top of this diagram for steps 1 to 4, and then step 5 is purely about CodePipeline, step 5 onwards. Of course, keep an eye out for a secret mission where you'll learn how to roll back deployments if something goes wrong. This is very much connected to one of the secret missions for a previous project with CodeDeploy. And in this project, you'll also get to see you get to see pretty much the upgraded version of that secret mission because it's now automated using CodePipeline. All right. So in this project, we will demonstrate how to use CodePipeline to set up a CI/CD pipeline. CodePipeline will automate the flow from GitHub all the way to CodeDeploy. By the end of this project, we'll be able to simply push a change to our code and see the updated web app live in production without us having to go into CodeBuild and CodeDeploy. All right, is the plan for today's project clear? How are you guys feeling? Oh, I'm excited. Do we have any questions about CodePipeline so far or the plan for today's project so far? Now's a great time to ask it. And in the meantime, H is based in Italy. Wow. Hello, that's so cool. I'm currently in New Zealand. Aman says, can we get a tutorial on Kotlin? Wow, great project request. If you ever have a project request, I'd love to see it. Yeah, for sure. I've been gathering lots of project requests lately. So yeah, add them to the chat, whatever you'd like to learn. And I would love to just put them all together and then arrange them, based on how popular each request is. My web live server, I can't see that. I think it's the security group. Yo, it sounds like you have a CodeDeploy issue right now. Is it because have you deployed your web server using the cloud formation template we gave you, Tinsimo AI Studio? If you've deployed with that and you've put in the correct IP address, that should be okay. So let's see if you still have that error by the time we get to CodeDeploy. I'll be very curious to see what happens next. Ooh, I think I'm just gonna fix this. Okay, nice. Great question from H. Will CodePipeline bypass Code Connect? So good to ask this one. So what H is asking here is, H has noticed, look, this diagram has CodePipeline here. You're saying we're connected to GitHub, CodeBuild, CodeDeploy. What about these things in the middle, between these stages? Technically, Code Connect and S3 are part of CodeBuild, so we're gonna see both of them even in the build stage as well when we set up CodePipeline. So no, we're not gonna bypass them, but they're actually just a part of the setup of connecting to this one. Okay, cool beans. Cool. And Timtimo AI Studio, I just recommend double checking the IP address with another source, by the way, because the IP address could be, if you rely on one single website to find the IP address, it could actually differ from your actual IP address. It's best to always double check it by checking out another official IP address checker. Just Google what is my IP address and just open like 3 different tabs to see if your IP address is the same across all 3, plus the original website that you used. Because I had the exact same error in the past. All right. So first we're gonna check, have you completed days 1 to 5 of the 7-day DevOps challenge? Because we've got day 1, setting up a web app, day 2, connecting a GitHub repo, day 3, CodeArtifact, day 4, CodeBuild, and day 5, CodeDeploy. Where is everyone up to in this challenge? Did you get to finish all 5 days already? Are you in the middle? Wherever you are, there's actually the steps for you today. So no stress if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I might need to catch up to make it to this challenge. It is true that if you do these 5 projects first, you have a huge head start in terms of your understanding of the concepts, in terms of your understanding of how they connect together. You'll also have a head start if you already have all of the code that we're going to build today in your GitHub repository. Other than that, we still have you covered. Okay, you still have, if you have kept all your resources, you can easily skip straight to step 5, for example. If you haven't done any of these projects, we've got you covered. And if you've done days 1 to 5 and you've deleted all your resources, we're gonna assume these things, but otherwise we're just gonna keep on going with our project setup. Now, there's a special little tab here for people who have done day 6 on CloudFormation, which is our pro project. And this project, you would have created a template that automated the deployment of all of the different pieces of your CI/CD architecture. Okay, so, oh my goodness, we've got Ernest saying, you're on a flight right now using the flight Wi-Fi. Shout out to that in-flight Wi-Fi, and shout out to you, Ernest, for joining. That's awesome. Where are you heading? That's wild. Aw, thank you so much for enjoying the projects in the challenge so far, and thank you so much for spending the time to join on a busy flight. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, Plexidus has finished all the other challenges. Can't wait to get through this one. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, you're gonna love this one. Okay, so if you've deployed, if you've created the CloudFormation template with your CI/CD architecture, now's the time to deploy it, and this will save you heaps of setup time across steps 1 to 4 of this project. So you could head to the CloudFormation console, deploy your CloudFormation template, and off you go. Okay, and then you'll be all set up. But in my scenario, I will just continue on with deleting. With this path where we've done projects 1 to 5 and we've deleted everything, so we can do everything from the start together. I think it's super satisfying when you do build everything from scratch from the start in one go. So let's challenge ourselves and give that a try. All right, we are going to assume you are doing this project with an existing IAM admin user. We're going to assume that you already have VS Code downloaded with an extension called SSH installed. We're also going to assume that you have a GitHub repository that stores the code from days 1 to 5 at the moment. Okay, so we're going to keep on going. And if you feel like, you don't take any of these, you can easily catch up by checking out the previous projects in this series. So you'll be all sweet as well. Okay. And actually, if you don't have the code from days 1 to 5, you can still follow along this project guide. Just click on the correct tabs for yourself. It just means that you're skipping less parts, really. It just means you're doing all of the projects, all of the steps in this project without skipping anything, which is pretty cool too. All right, we're going to start by setting up your development instance. And how that's going to work is, it's right over here at the very start of our architecture diagram. So we're going to have to launch an EC2 instance, and that also comes with setting up a key pair. All right, so the key pair is kind of like our permissions to this EC2 instance, and then we're also going to be setting up a few networking settings too, to just make sure that your computer is connected to this EC2 instance, like there's a path between them. All right, so the 4 milestones that we're going to hit in this setup stage is to launch an EC2 instance. We're going to SSH connect to that instance, and we're going to use VS Code and connect VS Code to that instance too. Then we're going to install some tools and then clone your code, and off we go. And then that's it for the first step. Now, you will be quite familiar with these steps. I hope you are, if you've done the first 5 projects. Man, because it's going to be like your 6th time doing this step if you've done the first 5 projects. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker. I'm going to assume that we've done the first 5 projects together. And I'm going to just launch this straight away. All right, so I'm going to head to the instances page, and I'm going to click Launch Instances. And, oh, I just realized, let me put the project guide on the new tab so we have both windows going. Dun, dun, dun. And right now we're pretty much redoing project 1 of this series. So if you're feeling like the launching of this EC2 instance is going by a bit too quickly without a lot of explanation, you're so welcome to check out the project guide for project 1 of this series. And yeah, I'm sure you'll catch up fine. I'm sure you'll catch up all good. Okay, so the name for this EC2 instance is going to be nextwork-devops-your name, like this. And I'm going to put in my name here. And don't forget to give yourself the free tier eligible AMI. Are we all here? Don't forget to give yourself the free tier eligible instance type, okay? And then get yourself a key pair. I make this mistake every time. I should have deleted my key pair before I started this project. So let me quickly delete this key pair. And then I'll be at the same place as everyone doing this project. All right. So let's download a key pair, and I think I might need to delete my local file as well. Oops. Okay, so let's create a new key pair called Nextwork DevOps. DevOps, please. Oh, and I'll just refresh this. Okay, so create a new key pair called Nextwork-DevOps. And we're going to create that straight away like this. And that's going to download a file into your local computer, which is called your private key. So your private key, the one that just got downloaded, is going to be your key to connecting to this EC2 instance. And we're going to make sure that the networking setting says my IP so that it's connected to your specific computer and not like anyone that has access to the internet or like anyone that has access to SSH connections. So you're going to launch your EC2 instance straight away. And how are we going? Is the pacing okay? Just quickly checking. Let me know if I'm going a bit too quickly here. But I think that's our EC2 instance launch straight away. So name, it was the free tier eligible AMI, free tier eligible instance type, the key pair, network setting, all done. Very, very good job. So once that's set up, we can actually go straight into connecting to that instance. Oh my gosh, and if it says this step is optional, this is a formatting issue from me. I'm going to correct this right away. This step is not optional. I feel like this might have been borrowed from my previous project. So please ignore this banner. And by the time you open this, if you're watching this after this specific live stream, I hope this banner is gone for you now. You shouldn't be seeing this banner. Okay. So let's keep on going by connecting to our EC2 instance over VS Code. So we've got our spicy little VS Code window here. And we're gonna tell VS Code, hey, I've just launched an EC2 instance. I want you to connect to that EC2 instance so that I can write code inside this EC2 instance that I've launched. To do that, you're going to open up that SSH remote window that you've set up in the previous project. So back in project 1, we did this. And then you're going to click on connect to host. And you're going to click on configure SSH host. If you can see that there is like this existing line in the first row. We don't really need that anymore. So this is an instance that we've used maybe in project 5 of this series, but that instance has been deleted. So we have a new EC2 instance to connect to, which means it's time for us to change these details into our newest EC2 instance. Yes, it does. Your IP address can change, Gangada. So continue to check your IP address. It might have updated. I know once my IP address updated in the middle of a project, and that was a trip. And it's why I talk about IP addresses so much now. All right, so your EC2 instance, let's just select this and update our file details to use our new EC2 instances details. Okay, so let's select your EC2 instance and let's go ahead and just make sure we copy that public IPv4 address. So copy this little guy here, copy it. Ooh, okay, very nice. And then I'm gonna paste it here like this. And I think we're ready to connect. Are we ready to connect, team? What do you think? Do you think I'm ready to connect now to my EC2 instance? I've got my EC2 instance's address here, which means I know where to connect to. You can give it a try. You know, let me be hasty and let me say, yeah, I want to connect to the host now. Click on my new host details. Let's go connect. What's gonna happen? What do you think is gonna happen? Oh, it asked me if I want to continue, and then it says it can't establish a connection. Yeah, we can't connect like this, team. Don't make this mistake. Don't go straight into just putting in your new EC2 instances details, call it a day, and start connecting. There's a bit more we have to do than this. Okay, so what are the 2 things we haven't done yet? Can you tell? Okay, so you might be familiar with this. And Tutumo AI Studio says, no. Yeah, I know, right? No, you can't connect to it just like this. There's 2 things I haven't done. So one thing that I haven't done is I have not put my key, my private key in the right folder. So as you can see, this identity file says my private key is inside this folder called DevOps inside my desktop. And is that true? Do you actually have a folder called desktop? Called DevOps in your desktop? Nah. So I need to actually set up that DevOps folder in my desktop, and I need to drag my private key file, okay, from my downloads folder so that it's actually in the right place. First thing done, okay, that's my first error resolved. What's the second error? What's the second oopsie that I did? My private key is not available to me to use by default, okay? Private key right now is not gonna give me permission to use it. We need to give ourselves permission to use this private key and block out everyone else from using this private key. So to solve this, we're gonna need to find the path to our private key and then give ourselves access. This is super simple, okay? Nothing to worry about. All you gotta do is open up a terminal like this in VS Code, and then you're gonna print your working directory, pwd, or dir, and then you're gonna find yourself the location of your private key file. Now I'm gonna go straight there. Okay, I know we've done these steps before, so I'm gonna go a bit faster. I'm just gonna go straight to my private key file, and I'm gonna give myself access to my private key file like this. Okay, so now that you know the two oopsies that I've done, let's see if I fix it correctly. So this command has now successfully given my private key file the access to use this private key to start that connection. Let's try again. Okay, round 2. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Can we do this? Okay, it's gonna ask me, do I want to continue? And it says it can't let me continue. No! What's happened? Let's see. From the looks of this, it does seem like I should have access though. So I'm gonna see if there was a mistake in how I set this up over here. Did I do something wrong when I copied the address over? EC2, 52, 42. It seems like this should be correct, no? Why is it not correct? Why am I not getting access? Okay, let me try again. Let's see if you can actually connect to your EC2 instance locally. There's a command to do that, and it's the ssh-i command, which you might be familiar with, but let me show you how. So ssh-i lets you connect your local terminal, not VS Code, but it connects your local terminal to your EC2 instance. So I'm going to try give it the path to my private key file, and then I'm going to say ec2-user at, and then this is the address that this is the address of my EC2 instance, and let's see if I can connect locally. Okay, I'm going to say yes, I want to continue connecting. And I can connect. If you see this birdie, you know you can actually connect. So I'm going to go back to my SSH tool, my SSH extension. I'm going to say, hey, yo. Literally, I could connect locally. I should be able to connect over VS Code. Okay? The moment you tell off VS Code, you're like, hey, connect me. Now, there you go. SSH actually connected now. So my first try, for some reason, SSH didn't connect. But sometimes it just takes a second try. Like this time, and you can see that the connection is here. Okay, my connection is definitely working because I can see SSH on the bottom left-hand corner. Okay, so now I've connected to my EC2 instance, and that means whatever command I run in the terminal is now going to be run into my EC2 instance. So if I install a tool, I'm installing a tool inside that instance. If I navigate through a directory, I'm not navigating my local computer's file directory anymore. I'm navigating through my EC2 instances directory. Okay, so let's give that a go now, and let us go ahead and jump to the next tab to start installing some tools. Okay, so we've launched it, we've connected to it, and now we need to install some tools. Cool. There's 3 key tools to install. We're familiar with this, I hope, if this is not your first rodeo with this series. The 3 tools are Maven and Java. So I'm going to install, just going to copy and run the commands for installing Java. And what's the last one? Do you remember? It's Git. Okay, so we've got Maven, we've got Java, and now we've got Git as well to install. Ooh, Java's taking a bit longer. But as a recap, Maven is like our project manager, which makes sure that if we want to build our web app, if we want to install some packages, Maven is the one to do it. Java is the programming language itself, so the web app that we're going to build is built with Java, which is kind of like saying, oh, I'm speaking a language. What language? Like I'm trying to communicate with someone. What language am I speaking? Like English at the moment. And that's the same for Java. You can say, oh, I'm building a web app. And what language am I using to build that web app? Okay, it's Java. So we've got Maven, who's a very, very important package manager to work with Java, so that as you build the Java web app, if there's anything you need to install, anything you need to compile and build, Maven's the one to do it. It's amazing, honestly, at doing that. So once you've got Maven and Java installed, you can install Git next. And Git is a tool that connects you with your source code repository. So if you already have your code living somewhere, from the previous projects of the series, Git is going to help you, bring that over. Oh, interesting. Git is going to help you just connect to that repository, and so that you can retrieve the code that you've already created in the past. All right, Maven, Java, Git, they're all installed now, and you can even run a little command for each of these tools to check that you've installed them. So for Maven, it is called nvn-v. Let's check our Maven version. Okay, for Java, do you remember? It's java-version. Okay, so we got Maven here, we got Java here now, and what's the one for Git? It's git-version. Oof, no it's not. Yeah, I had a great chat with Sachin the other day, and we were talking about how, git-version doesn't work. So your task now is to see what is the correct version. What is the correct version of this command? It's actually hinted right here, okay? So always check the terminal message, and it says here usage git-v. So this is your git command, basically saying to you back, hey silly, git-version isn't a thing, but I have a feeling based on what you've typed out, the correct command for you is git-v. That's what it's trying to tell you. And it's also telling you here all of the other commands you could run using Git. But git-version is not a thing. So run git-v, and here we go. Okay, so you've got your Git version. Very nice. Now that we have Git installed, something cool is about to happen. You're going to clone the code that you've written in the previous projects of the series that you've pushed and saved into your Git repository. Okay, so I'm really excited for this step. It means that you can actually just see your code populate your EC2 instance, which is pretty cool. What you're going to do is you're going to go check out your repository from the previous projects of the series, and don't run away if you're like, wait, I didn't do the previous projects of the series. Does that mean I can't do this project anymore? You can definitely still do this project. It's just that this tab does assume that you have, used the code, created code before. I would highly recommend switching to this tab if you don't have an existing GitHub repo set up. Okay, so we've got all this here now, which is great. And I'm just gonna make sure I'm always using my main account. Okay, great. So from here, you're going to just clone the code. So you're making a copy of some existing code that you've written before. So let's go code, let's go copy it, and let's go back into your terminal and run git clone and paste. Awesome. So just like that, you've cloned your code. You've made a copy, and you can find it by going into your file Explorer and opening up Nextwork Web Project. Ooh, yeah, the name already matches up. Nextwork Web Project here, Nextwork Web Project here. Perfect. So let's open it. That's the right repository. Okay. Yeah, just like that. Tell VS Code that you trust the authors of this project file. I say this every single time, but it actually gets to me. I'm like, man, I was the one that wrote these files. Of course I trust the authors. So you've got your code from projects 1 to 5 now, all in VS Code now, which is perfect. Okay, it means you're now ready for the next step. So good. And you're gonna get a head start because you've already done all this good work, which is pretty cool. All right, so in the next step, we're going to be going into CodeArtifact to set up your CodeArtifact repository. So this is the repository that stores your web app's dependencies. I love this step because CodeArtifact has this magical moment at the end of the step where you kind of compile your code locally. So you're going to run a command in your terminal, and then you're going to see, all of your web apps packages just fill up your CodeArtifact repository. Your repository is gonna go like with all of these like packages. And the only reason why your CodeArtifact repository can like fill up so quickly is really because, you know, you have to learn how to set up this connection between your EC2 instance and your web app inside that EC2 instance with CodeArtifact. To see them connected always blows my head. I'm always like, whoa, like just look at these random services across my AWS account, across my AWS environment, just working together and connected together. Yeah, it feels really cool. So let's get started and let's create our CodeArtifact repository now. All right, and just take a note of your region now. Let's make sure that you're in a region and you've deployed your instance in a region that works for this project. We've got a list of 13 regions that works with this project. Make sure you're using one of those 13. Do you know where that list is? Do you know we've got that list somewhere that says you have to use one of these 13 regions for this project? We showed you in project 1 of the series, but if you haven't seen it before, here's the list again. It covers North Virginia, Ohio, Oregon, Ireland, London, Frankfurt, Stockholm, Milan, and there's Paris, Singapore, Sydney, Tokyo, Mumbai. If you aren't working on this project in either of these regions, please just switch regions right now to one of these. I promise you, I've done my research, and if you were to try to do this project in another region, you won't get access to all of the services you need, which kind of sucks, you know? Like you might be halfway through, or you might be just like 2 steps away from finishing, and it's gonna say, oh, like you're in the wrong region. And because you're in the wrong region, you have to start all over. So let's, now that you've switched into the correct region, let's head to CodeArtifact now. Okay. So we're going to open up CodeArtifact and we're going to create a repository. Let's click on Create Repositories, create this, and give your repository a name called Nextwork DevOps CI/CD. And give you a cheeky little description like this. Oh, I don't think my description is working. My copy paste is not working right now. Oh, okay. All right, so give it a description, and then you have an upstream repository for Maven, okay? Because after all, your project is a Java project, so you're gonna wanna make sure that your upstream repository Maven is storing Java packages already. So choosing Maven is the perfect choice as your upstream repository. And you're gonna create a domain within your account along the way. Heads up, we're now in project 3 of the 7-day DevOps challenge where we're redoing those steps. So if you feel like the guidance can be a little bit more detailed, I'd highly recommend checking out the dedicated project guide as well as a dedicated project demo for this part, okay? So great, we've done the setup properly, I think. You can even use this checklist to double check. We've got the repository name and description. The package format is Maven. Upstream repository, we selected that. And then we've entered a domain name too. So all that is done. You should see your repository created here. And you can even see your domain created here too. I don't know if you know this, but the domain just gets created straight away. Very nice. And this is your upstream repository created too. So Maven's created. Very good. And when that's done, you can head on over to set up IAM roles and policies. Do you know why we set up IAM roles and policies? I'm gonna see if anyone in the chat knows this. All right, so we set up IAM roles and policies because CodeArtifact is so secure. It's just so secure that a lot of resources by default don't have access to CodeArtifact. So CodeArtifact is all about storing your packages, and what's the point of storing your packages in CodeArtifact if no one can access it? So you're gonna say, oh man, literally all my other resources can't even see the packages inside CodeArtifact if I don't set up policies. And that's how we're going to set up policies. We're going to set up some IAM policies and an IAM role to grant other resources the access to CodeArtifact. Okay, we're going to be almost like a giving tree. We're going to say, all right, you've got access to CodeArtifact, and you've got access to CodeArtifact. And basically anyone that has the IAM policy that we're about to set up is going to get access to CodeArtifact. So the IAM policy is like the privilege of getting access to CodeArtifact, and then the IAM role is like the crown that different kinds of resources can wear to get access and have that privilege. Okay, so we're going to set up the privilege first, which is the policy, and then we're going to attach the policy onto the role. So let's go ahead, switch things over to JSON, and copy this code over. All right, so we've got this going, very nice. And let's go ahead and set up the policy. All right, and we've got step-by-step descriptions, line-by-line explanations of the policy if you want to check out the project guide for part 3 or day 3 of this 7-day challenge, by the way, for anyone that's like, oh, that code was interesting. Okay, so we've created the policy now. That was fast. And now we just create the role. So we create the role. We're going to say, for now, it's an EC2 instance that's going to be using this. And then we're going to attach the policy that we created. And now keep asking yourself questions. Keep asking yourself questions. Why did we choose EC2 as a use case just now? Do you know why? You know, is it clear to you why EC2 instance or EC2 was the use case there? Tintimo AI Studio has been on point so far, on the money, on talking about using IAM to connect artifacts to EC2 and for access. That's great. But I think the next step for us to think about is like, oh, why EC2? You know, why is EC2 needed? And the hint is actually on the next step. So if it's not clear yet, it will be clear in just a second. Okay, so we're going to go into EC2, and then we're going to select our instance. We're going to select security and modify IAM role to pick the IAM role that you have created. So EC2 instance Network CI/CD is the best role to use because that's the role you just created, and it's the role that's going to give your EC2 instance access to CodeArtifact. Let's update it, and let's go ahead and go back into our EC2 instance, because this is actually the instance you're looking at technically. It's just that VS Code is connected to that instance. So you're inside your instance now. We know your instance has access to CodeArtifact. Very good. And now you need to make sure that CodeArtifact is connected to your EC2 instance. But we know that your EC2 instance is wearing this certain role. It's wearing this crown that says, I can go to CodeArtifact, but it hasn't actually crossed the bridge yet. It hasn't actually gone into CodeArtifact yet. It just has the right to so far. You know, that's all you're doing when you set up the role in the policy. You just say like, you can, but you haven't. So we're gonna make sure our EC2 instance is actually connected to CodeArtifact. Okay, so go back to CodeArtifact and select your CodeArtifact repository, and let's view some connection instructions, and let's all make sure that we're selecting Mac and Linux for our operating system. I know it's tempting to select Windows if you're doing this project on a Windows computer, but always select Mac and Linux here. We want to make sure that we're using the instructions for our EC2 instance, which is an Amazon Linux 2023 instance. Okay, double check, double check. Okay, you've chosen the right thing. And then we're going to go ahead and export a token for our instance. So what does this command do? This command is basically saying, oh, EC2 instance, I see you. I know you want to get access to CodeArtifact. So here is a password for you to go into CodeArtifact. Okay, so this is a password here. When we run this command, we're like giving that EC2 instance a password. And what does EC2 instance like use that? How does EC2 instance use that password? It uses it inside your settings.xml file. So this file that you set up in the previous project, and you can do it from scratch still by copying and pasting the commands from steps 4 to 6 over. So these this step here, settings.xml, is about using that password that you've given to your EC2 instance and then going into CodeArtifact and then either storing or retrieving packages since you now have the password to get access into CodeArtifact. Okay, so this is as simple as that. That's it with the settings file. It's really about just using the password, getting access to your repository, and then making sure that Maven, that tool we installed in step 1, is always choosing to go to your repository when it needs a package. Okay, so that's the power of this handy little command here. Oops, my screen is just looking a little funky right now, so I'm just going to quickly adjust a little setting. Oh, please let me adjust. Yeah, my screen is a bit funky right now, isn't it? It's okay. And then, okay, great. All right, so settings.xml is right over here, and I've already pulled it from since it was in my GitHub repository. So we're not going to spend too much time there. I think what's next for us is to compile our web app now that we have settings.xml set up. So let's compile it now. Okay, so run this command that says mvn compile-s settings.xml in the terminal. Let's see what happens next. Ooh, the build is starting. How do you feel, everyone? So EC2, our EC2 instance is now running this command that says Maven with the files, with all of the code that you see for my web app, and with all of the settings that you see in settings.xml, let's compile our web app. And Maven's gonna go and compile your web app now, okay? It's been instructed to do this. And as it compiles your web app, what it does is it tries to grab all of the packages that your project needs and bring them down into your environment. So your environment is gonna have a lot of packages, or it's gonna have a lot of like pieces of code that your web app relies on. So you see all this, your terminal like filling up with these lines. It's basically your terminal saying, okay, like we just downloaded this, we just downloaded this, we just downloaded this. And it's just downloading so many things. And the reason for downloading it is so that you have a copy, and also so that Maven can go to your CodeArtifact repository, refresh this now, and store a copy in here too. Amazing, amazing. This looks great. So all these packages are in here now. This is the satisfying feeling I was mentioning previously. And I really like just compiling again after your first success. Just compile again. Go for it. And you can see your second compile is 1 second. Look, I just succeeded in a second. The previous one took like a minute. We were talking while we were compiling. Now it only takes a second. And that's really the convenience of having a local repository with all of these packages already inside. So shout out CodeArtifact. Thank you for doing that. And that's it. Step 2 done. So let's move on ahead to step 3 now, which is about setting up CodeBuild. Okay, we got 2 more setup steps, and then after that, we've got CodePipeline to tackle. And I'm excited, man. I'm so excited. We're making good progress already, because now we're already up to CodeBuild, and we're gonna set up a build project. Okay, this is going to be round 2 or round 3 of you creating a build project. And with CodeBuild, we've got a few key milestones ahead. This time there's 5. It's a bit of a meaty one. But with CodeBuild, we need to actually launch an S3 bucket first. And then we can create this project that you see in front of us, okay? This build project. And then we're gonna set up the permissions again, because CodeBuild still doesn't have access to CodeArtifact until you give it access. And then there's another file we need to create called build spec before we test the build stage. So the build stage here is all about creating a file out of your web app. So your web app contains so many files. Okay, there's so many files in your web app. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then there's all of these different packages as well, okay, on the side that we just installed. So when you deploy a web app, it gets a little funky sometimes because there's just so many files going on that you're gonna want to use CodeBuild to say, hey, can we just build this web app into a single file? It's kind of like creating a zip file, out of all of these random files that could be in your folder, just for like handy safekeeping and keeping things organized in one place. So CodeBuild is going to be doing that for us, and we're going to need to set up an S3 bucket first. Do you remember S3 from our little diagram? That's right. So we're going to start with the right-hand side actually by creating that S3 bucket before moving on to creating CodeBuild, okay, here. And then we're going to be moving on to creating CodeArtifact and editing its IAM policy. We're editing CodeBuild's policy to have access to CodeArtifact. I hope that was clearer. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and create that bucket now. Awesome. And we've got your bucket name. And create it. Done. That's it. Bucket done. Next step. CodeBuild. Let's go into CodeBuild and create that build project now. So let's select create project. Let's select Nextwork-DevOps-CI/CD. We're going to keep that default project setting, the source, GitHub. GitHub has access to, GitHub is the source code repository after all. So we're going to want to make sure that we're connected to GitHub. And I have a feeling that I might actually need to disconnect and reconnect because I deleted a connection the other day. I'm feeling nervous. I feel like, yeah, I should just create a new GitHub connection. So maybe you have an existing connection sitting there. For myself, I've deleted my connection so I can start from the top with everyone here. So if you would like to create a new connection with me, here's how you do it. As you can see before, I selected manage account credentials in that first page, and in the second page, I selected create a new GitHub connection here. And now on the third page, this is where you name your connection. This is my connection to GitHub, and I'm gonna call it Nextwork-DevOps-CI/CD. Now click on your GitHub account, when you get redirected here. And just like that, there is a connection between you and GitHub. That was so easy. That's why GitHub app is like the elite way, I think, the truly elite way to connect your AWS account in GitHub. It's just so easy. And there we go, just like that, connection I think is set up. We just had to, I think I'm gonna go back and refresh this in my first page, in my create build project page. And maybe I just needed to select this again and select save. Mayhaps. It's not showing up yet. That's okay. I might just need to refresh my page and see if that changes it. So let's set up the connection to CodeBuild now. How's everyone going? Is everyone going through a relatively good speed? Is this okay? Am I going too fast? Are we also up to CodeBuild right now? If you're already up to CodeBuild within 1 hour of this live, that's so impressive. So that's pretty cool, everyone. All right, okay, now it works. I simply had to refresh, and I can find my repository, which is netnextwork1, my account name, plus my repository name, like this. Source version. You can here actually enter a specific branch that you want to use in CodeBuild. I would highly recommend this if you actually happen to have multiple branches in your GitHub repository. As you can see here, I only have one branch called master. So I don't really care. I'm like, yeah, I only have one branch, just go and build my project using that branch. But if you have multiple branches, make sure you're typing in the name of the branch that contains all of your updated files. What is your main branch? What is the branch that you're working on the most that has all of your files? Use that branch instead in here, source version. Since I don't have this, I don't need to enter anything. So I can just move on to disabling the webhook. We don't need this in the CodeBuild. And then go ahead to update your image to Amazon Corretto 8. This is now project 4, by the way, of the DevOps challenge. So if this stuff is new to you, just know that we have a lot more detailed guidance in project 4. Okay, And for the build spec file, use a build spec file is going to be the setting because we're going to be writing the build spec file. We're going to be writing the build spec file inside our web app repository too. Nice. Let's set up the artifact S3. This is why we created the bucket. So enter in your S3 bucket's name like this. And you can give a name to your bucket too. Okay, I think we got all these sorted just now. Very good. And then next work dash DevOps dash CI/CD dash your name. And then for name, there's next work dash DevOps dash CI/CD dash artifact. Ooh, don't want to choose the wrong one. Okay, put in a name for the build artifact that gets created. And honestly, the name here doesn't matter. You can literally name it anything. It's really about just CodeBuild asking you, hey, okay, you want me to compress your web app into like a single file. What do you want me to call that file? And we're here saying, oh, just call the file Nextwork DevOps CI/CD artifact. But if you want to call it like pink, or you want to call it like bubble, I don't know. You want to call it like a cool name like Jason, I don't know. If that's the case, you can name it however you like. All right, so artifacts packaging, let's change that from none to a zip file. And then for your CloudWatch logs, enter in a log group name here, so AWS-CodePipeline. So this is actually, we're just using the default settings here. So if you actually skip this, you're still gonna have the exact same settings like pop up. So don't worry and don't fret if you're like, oh, I didn't actually, I don't think I actually like updated a group name and made sure this is ticked. By default, it is. So if you haven't done anything shady, this should already be set up for you. It's just that it's nice to type it in yourself to be like, yes, this is gonna be my CloudWatch group name. And your CloudWatch logs are going to be quietly collecting logs and basically writing diary entries for everything that happens when CodeBuild works, when CodeBuild like builds your app. So it's super helpful. Nice. So we've got all of this set up now. And with that done, you're up to IAM. So now this is the part where we give CodeBuild the permission to access CodeArtifact. Okay, so let's go hunt down our little CodeBuild role, go back into your IAM console, refresh it, you might say refresh the roles page, and search the CodeBuild role. So this role was created in the CodeBuild setup process. And CodeBuild's already wearing a crown because it already has a role. So we're gonna snoop into here and say, oh, what permissions do you already have? Okay, so you already have a base policy. So these are some other privileges that CodeBuild already has. It already has the rights to go into S3, great, which means that it has the right to actually put your build artifact into the bucket when it's done. And it also has access to CloudWatch logs to write those diary entries of what happens during a build. And it also has access to Code Connection, which is going to be the connection to your GitHub repository. Notice that there is no mention of CodeArtifact yet. So we're going to want to find CodeArtifact by adding a permission here. And in Add Permissions, search up what you've created, CodeArtifact. This is the policy you created in the last step. And you add it to CodeBuild. So now CodeBuild has access to CodeArtifact too. Done. Just like that. Okay, so CodeBuild has access to CodeArtifact. I think we're happy. We literally have build spec already created from the previous project of the series. So if you have it in your GitHub repository, you're all set. You're literally all set. But if you don't, this is the time for you to use this tab to get yourself ready with build spec. Okay? All right, and then when you're done, you can now put your build project to the test by trying to build your project like this. So I'm going to click Start Build now, and I'm going to let my build go ahead. and we'll see if it's a success. I hope it is. It should be. If it's not a success, we'll have to troubleshoot together, which is totally cool too. Oh, I think my camera's frozen. It looks so funny. Okay, cool. Oh, we have a question about a link to CloudFormation. Yeah, for sure. Let me send you the link to CloudFormation as well. So to find the CloudFormation project, I would go into the project guide like this. So I'm just going to go into my project guide. I'll just show you just in case this helps in the future as well. So I'm going to go into my project guide. Here there's a search bar for me, so I'm going to use that search bar. And there should be a link to CloudFormation here. There we go. And I'll send that to you. So just as a heads up, Tintimo AI Studio, CloudFormation is a pro project. So if you are a Nextbook Pro, you can jump into the project guide straight away. Otherwise, you always have the project demo that I released yesterday too. And it's a success! Whew. CodeBuild, amazing. We ran into no errors today, which is a bit crazy to me. And if there are no errors, we can actually move on. You can go into your bucket and check. Refresh this and you can see the artifact is now created with the exact name that you set up in your CodeBuild setup. So that's pretty cool. But once CodeBuild is done, you can move on ahead to CodeDeploy. Okay, so this is our last setup step. Ooh, after this, it's just CodePipeline from here. So we're going to go ahead and go into the Applications tab to have a look at CodeDeploy. So CodeDeploy is all about deploying the web app that you've created a build artifact for. So you created that build artifact with CodeBuild, and that artifact is sitting inside your S3 bucket. So what CodeDeploy is going to do, it's going to say, oh, CodeBuild, thanks for creating that juicy build artifact for me. I'm going to go into the S3 bucket, I'm going to grab the build artifact you created, and I'm going to deploy the app so that people can actually see it. We've created some web app code, no one can see it yet because it's not deployed yet. Only until you've deployed your web app with CodeDeploy can anyone see your live website. So that's why this step is so fun, because at the end of this step, you're going to see that your web app is now live to the world. Shall we go ahead? All we got to do is head on over and create an application. So this is our CodeDeploy application. And oh, I just realized you can set up your application now, so we don't have to stop. But there is one thing that I have to go back and do. But this is totally okay. You can create your application, super easy, because all you got to do is say, oh, I have an application I want to set up. I have an app that I want to deploy. That app is called Nextbook-DevOps-CI/CD. Any name, honestly, works. In our case, I'm just going to use the same name that we've been using so far. And you're going to say that the instance, that the web app is going to be deployed on an instance. Okay, so an EC2 instance is going to be responsible for hosting our web app. So we're going to create the application now. Great. Okay, so we've got an application, and this means that we can jump to the next tab. So we've got the application set up, and we've got this little guy here to sort out as well. So this one's next. Let's go into our CloudFormation console and deploy some deployment resources. So let's go into CloudFormation. Okay, so we've got CloudFormation over here, and CloudFormation is the tool that lets us deploy all of our resources in a template file, which is why if you've done project 6 of the series, it means that you will be able to deploy all of your architecture that we've been setting up across this hour in like 1 minute. It's actually insane. So here, let's go and set up the deployment instance by creating a stack and creating it with new resources like this. Okay, and shout out to Sachin, my goodness, you're onto it, man. You got me good, because I totally forgot about that. Which is why we're doing it now. Solos for the Savior says, still waiting on another study with me. So sweet. Sounds like another one is due. Say less. I'm thinking about this now. Thank you for mentioning it. Do you want one with typing sounds or no? Such a random question, but we've actually had a request for typing sounds the other day. Let me know your thoughts. Do you want the typing sounds or do you want it to be completely silent? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're just going to upload a template file like this. And we're gonna upload a template file for our deployment environment. Here is the template for the deployment environment. We're gonna go ahead and just upload that into CloudFormation like this. And once that's ready, you can deploy your stack. So this CloudFormation stack is going to hold a lot of resources like EC2 instances and VPCs to help us with just packaging everything we need in one stack. And later on, when we don't need these resources anymore, we can just delete the stack, and every resource that's inside that stack gets deleted with it. Which is really handy. You know, imagine if you could just, if there was like a bunch of stuff you wanted to delete or like throw away in your room, and then instead of saying like, oh, I need to recycle shoes here, I need to recycle clothes here, I need to throw away paper there, instead of having to go into like 3 different locations to delete your things, imagine that you just had a box and you put all of the resources into that box and you deleted the box, and all of the recycling, everything's just handled for you. All you had to do was care about the box. That's what a stack does. Okay, so a stack just has a bunch of different kinds of resources inside, and when you don't need that project anymore, you can just delete the stack, and everything that was created in that stack gets deleted straight away. So let's go on ahead and enter a stack name and enter IP address. And Tintamol AI Studio, I have a feeling you might still be tuning in, so this is what I'm talking about. You know how it says you can get your IP from this website? This is the website that I've been using. Like, I've been a loyal user of this website for a long time. And it used to give me my IP address correctly, but it now gives me the wrong IP address, which is why I'm very much cautious of saying, hey, just double check the IP address you get with another source. So I'm gonna say, what is my IP address over here? And you can see my IP address is actually something completely different. It's actually this one, which is the correct one. So just double check your IP address even after using this. Unfortunately, it might be better for us to use another website. So I might just update the project guide to use an official website instead of this handy tool that I always used to use. But we're gonna add a /32 to the end of this, and then select next. If the stack already exists for you, then add a cheeky number to the end like this. And then select next, so you can deploy everything that's inside the stack. Okay, so our stack failure options are always going to use an option that deletes everything if something fails. You know, if something in this stack doesn't work, I don't want any of these resources in my account. Delete everything together is what we're trying to say here. So select that option. Delete all newly created resources. Tick that little checkbox, select next, and everything should be okay. I think you got your stack name, you got your IP address checked, and I think we can go ahead and just submit it now. Good, good, good. So we're gonna go ahead and create this. It should look okay. If there are any errors, we can come back to it and see it together. But for now, I'm gonna assume that it's gonna be fine, because we're gonna move on to the next step of our CodeDeploy setup, which is our deployment group. So we've done the application, we can move on to the deployment group over here. So let's go back into CodeDeploy, and in our app, there's the option to create a deployment group. So select your deployment group and add a deployment group name. It's gonna be next to our DevOps CI/CD and deployment group like this. Enter that. And you might notice that we need a service role too. Yeah, there's no service role already by default for CodeDeploy, so you actually need to set this up manually. Luckily for us, we're familiar with roles. We've set up a role for an EC2 instance. We set up a role for CodeBuild. We edited that role. And now we simply need to create one for CodeDeploy. So let's go ahead to IAM console, select roles, and let's create a new one like this. Okay, so we've got a new role getting created, and this one is for CodeDeploy. So let's select CodeDeploy, and let us select next. Good. There's already this permission policy that you can add to CodeDeploy by default. Okay, so AWS has already put together this little package of permissions often required by CodeDeploy. So this is super handy. It means we don't need to write any permissions from scratch. We can just use what's given to us. Select next. And let's go ahead and give it a cheeky name like these before we create the role. And now, just like that, CodeDeploy has a role. I hope that was all good. Was that clear? That CodeDeploy now has a role. And actually, I just realized I probably could do this even better. If I were to click into the role, I know that we have some policies that were already given to us by AWS by default, but let's actually study these policies for a little second here, because why does AWS already have this package? Okay, so by default, AWS CodeDeploy, its job isn't about deploying a web app necessarily. It's more like it's a coordinator. CodeDeploy doesn't do the deploying itself. At the end of the day, it's an EC2 instance that's deploying the web app. So CodeDeploy's role is more like it's a manager of EC2 instances. So if it's a manager of EC2 instances, you best believe that CodeDeploy needs access to EC2. And that's what this policy is more about. So this policy is all about saying, okay, your CodeDeploy role is gonna have access to auto scaling, so scaling up and down the number of EC2 instances that are deploying your web app. It's gonna have access to EC2 itself. It should have access to CloudWatch. It should have access to elastic load balancing, which is about balancing traffic between your instances. So yeah, that's great. You know, just like a classic package of permissions that CodeDeploy usually needs. Now that that IAM role is set up, you can actually refresh this page. Just copy that group name. If you're like me and you don't want to retype this, copy the group name, refresh your page, paste what you copy, okay, and then enter your service role that you've set up. Okay, this is the service role. We can use that now. And the deployment type is going to be in place. The environment configuration, Amazon EC2 instances. And how do we know? We're going to know, how do we know which instance is going to be used for deployment? You're going to know by just filtering down to specific tags. So there should be a role tag that says web server for our deployment instances. And once you select that, you can see that you have you should have unique matched instances. I have multiple. I have two because I've deployed my CloudFormation template twice. Okay, once in another project and I still forgot to delete it, and once today. So because I've deployed it twice, I've got two unique matched instances. Because you've probably only deployed it once, you should only have one unique matched instance here. Okay. So once that's matched, you can even click here for details and then see, aha, this is the EC2 instance that your CloudFormation template successfully launched. All right, and I've got two, a bit funny because I've deployed the stack twice, but this is the one that was deployed just now when I deployed my CloudFormation stack. If you go back to the CloudFormation console, you might even notice that it says create complete now in CloudFormation because it's finished deploying everything inside and it's created that instance for you. Okay, very cool. And that's why tags are so damn cool. You know, if we didn't have tags, CodeDeploy wouldn't know which instance is supposed to deploy your web app. So that's the reason why these tags are so important. And now that it's set up, you can keep the default settings for the agent And then for deployment settings, keep the default. Disable load balancing because that will end up charging us money. And we aren't deploying this web app across like multiple instances today. It's just one. It's supposed to be just one. So let's go ahead and create the deployment group like that. Cool. And that, by the way, was all about project 5 of this series was all about each of those settings that we just went through. So if you'd like more detailed explanations for what I just went through, I'd recommend checking out project 5 of the 7-Day DevOps Challenge. Hey, Plaxidus says, love the typing sounds. ManaTD also loves it, so thanks. This is good to know. Typing sounds it is. Okay, deployment group set up. So next up is to create the deployment itself. Let's launch a deployment, and it's already part of the deployment group. Very good. We're gonna say, hey, the compressed file that we're deploying is here. So let's copy the S3 URI. Let's paste it here. And the revision file type is a zip file. Okay, so let's pick zip. Oh, I should be in the right tab. So let's pick zip. And let's leave these default settings alone. It's fine. We'll just go straight to creating the deployment. And I can see it still says 0 of 2 instances updated. Oh my gosh, this is on me. I should have just deleted the other CloudFormation template. It should only have one. There should only be one instance for you, which is why I'm like face palming right now. I'm like, man, it should only just be one. Hey, at least it worked. Ah, it worked for this instance. Ah, deployment is a success. That was fast and that was successful, wasn't it? Oh, how satisfying. Deploying worked. So all we gotta do now is check out our instances and see the web app live on the internet. Let's go ahead to our instances page. Let's select our EC2 instance. Let's go up ahead to find our instance's public IPv4 address. And I'm gonna copy it and open it in a new tab. So copied, open, in a new tab, paste. I'm even gonna paste it in the chat here so everyone can check out this link if you'd like. But this is basically the deployed web app. It's gonna take a bit of time for it to load. It usually does. But ta-da! Ta-da! This is my web app. Looking really cute and simple, but it's deployed. Very good. So we have just gone through an amazing process of creating a web app from scratch, using code from GitHub, and then we put all of our artifacts in CodeArtifact. We've built the app and put the compressed file in code with CodeBuild, CodeDeploy, got the compressed file and actually deployed it, and now it's in the world and you can see it. Amazing. Is that link working for you, by the way? I might even be able to check this by just opening it in incognito. So if I were to open it incognito, oh, it might still work even if I'm on incognito because I think my IP address is still the same. Oh man, oh man. I would love for someone else in the chat to let me know if that link that I sent in the chat opens for you. Does it? I'm curious. If it opens for you, that's great. If it doesn't, it's actually more because of my instance's security and networking settings, which is something we can fix. Oh, okay, the link isn't working. Oh man, I think I know why. Okay, sorry, this is a quick detour. This is not a part of the project, but I'm just personally curious about how I can make this available. So I'm gonna quickly check how I can do this. How I would do this is by going into my instance. I've selected it. I'm gonna go into networking and, oh, actually, instead of networking, I think I should be going into security and then checking the inbound rules for my instance. And as you can see, what my CloudFormation template does, you know how I deployed my instance with CloudFormation? I think what that did was it actually made sure that only my IP address can access it. So this is just a small little extra that I want to do. You don't have to do this. I'm just personally like, ooh, this is fun. So I'm gonna go ahead and update the security group so that everyone can see it. Ooh, do you guys want to see it? I kind of want you guys to see it. Ooh, okay, I'm gonna update it. I'm gonna update it. And if I update it, it should mean that you can see it now. So everyone that says it didn't work, refresh right now. Can you see the web app now? It might take a little while. Oh, I hope we don't run into any errors if it's cached. It works! Oh! That's so cool. Wow, so someone, you know, that's not in this room can see it. You can see it. Yeah, that's awesome. So that's a deployment done, which is pretty damn cool, eh? And we've got Sachin. That's okay. Hey, we're honestly taking a little break right now since I decided to detour into the security group stuff. But here Sachin says, hey Nat, sorry for the backtrack on the create deployment step. Do we enable load balancer? Because if we do, then it is not letting me create the deployment. Oh, disable the load balancer step. Please uncheck that. I just realized the step for that is not in the project guide because it was thrown into the wrong tab. So that's on me, Sachin, if you were trying to follow the guide and you're saying, oh, what do I do about the load balancer? Uncheck it, please. Uncheck enable load balancing. And you should be able to create your deployment. Great question there. And I'm gonna update our guide. Ooh. Okay, but that was a successful deployment. So what's next for us, oh, I'm so excited, is now about setting up your pipeline. Okay, so everyone can now see this web app. My next challenge and our next challenge as a team is we have now steps 5 to 8 to go. And these are gonna be quick steps, okay? It's gonna be quick steps because we've already set up all of this architecture already. And CodePipeline is now here to say, let's automate this. And then stay here because by the end of this project, I'm gonna show you how I can just quickly make a change to my code and you on the other side can actually see those changes like live in the web app because all of this is automated and I don't need to manually build my app again and then deploy my app again. Okay, check this out. So in this step, we will now start setting up CodePipeline. This means we can start putting together all the different stages of our software development, like pushing code, building the web app, and deploying it in one automatic workflow. What do you think are some of the favorite words of DevOps are? I kind of feel like automating is probably one. Infrastructure as code might be another one. But I think automating might be like the word in DevOps that comes up so much. But actually the other day, I actually saw this awesome post from someone that started their role as a DevOps engineer, and then they were talking about how wow, I've learned about how DevOps is really not just about the skills, it's really about just understanding how you can make things more efficient between development and ops. And it's not just about infrastructure as code. It's not just about building these pipelines. They're cool, but don't forget that DevOps is actually much more than that. It's actually it's this principle about making things more efficient, and it doesn't have to be the tools all the time. And I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead into CodePipeline now. So head to the CodePipeline console, which you can find over the search bar like this, or you can find pipeline like this, and then select pipelines. Is my face frozen? Hot damn. Why is my face frozen? Okay, so we've got pipelines, and let's take a screenshot actually of the CodePipeline homepage. So you can click on the Getting Started page actually, and take a screenshot of this. I honestly just think it's fun to put home pages into your documentation. It just looks really cool, like a change in visuals. So this is your chance to spice up your documentation with a little homepage photo. And let's go into creating the pipeline. Okay, so what is CodePipeline? Why are we using it? And let's give that a go. Let's try explain this. All right. Oof. AWS CodePipeline is an AWS DevOps tool that helps us create a workflow that automatically moves code from GitHub, our source code repository, all the way to deployment, i.e. All the way to CodeDeploy, our deployment tool. Is there anything else we want to know? Yeah, so it just automatically triggers the build and the deployment for us, which is what makes CodePipeline so helpful. And it does help make sure deployments are consistent and reliable, which is nice. This helps to make sure that deployments are consistent and reliable with less risk of human errors. Great. Okay, so when that's done, let's select Done. And let's create our pipeline now. Alrighty, team. So when we're ready to create our pipeline, we're gonna build a custom pipeline today. Okay, we're gonna build a custom pipeline today because this lets you just build the entire pipeline from start to finish from scratch. Otherwise, if we were to choose another option, some of the stuff might get picked for us, or you might only get to automate only a certain part of the pipeline and not the entire pipeline. We want to build a custom pipeline because let's automate the full thing and let's do it step by step together. So let's do that. Go next, and let's give our pipeline a cool little name here. A name we've never used before. Just joking, it's a name we've used all the time. Nextwork-DevOps-CI/CD is going to be the name of our pipeline. And then the execution mode is superseded. Oh, so funny. I actually just love the way technical terms can use such spicy words sometimes. Superseded. What do you think that means? An execution mode is superseded for us. And that actually means that if a new execution is triggered for CodePipeline, the newer one will take over and cancel the older one. So how this works, if we were to give ourselves some context, every time you change your code, that's a run of your pipeline. So every time I add a new line to my code, if I save and push the code, I'm triggering the pipeline again. Let's say I save and push the code, I trigger the pipeline, and I'm like, oh, one more change, save and push again. So when you have multiple pushes that are happening at the same time, how should CodePipeline treat it? Like, you've just put through 2 pushes in quick succession, what should CodePipeline do? So in this scenario, superseded is saying that whatever was the newest push is just gonna be the one that we focus on. Cancel all of the older ones that you did first. Whatever is the latest push, let's just like run the pipeline, run the automation with that. You know, don't care about what was the old code that we tried to push beforehand. That's the fastest way you could handle like multiple runs of your pipeline. So you have other options here. You've got queued, which says let's just do things one at a time. Let's queue up and just finish the old one first before we do the new one. And parallel is for cases where you can actually try to run the pipeline for both at the same time. So like keep on just doing both Don't need to queue, don't need to cancel anything, just do both together. And that could work if you have multiple branches, if you have different code changes that can actually be built at the same time. You know, if you have two different parts of an app that you want to build and changing one doesn't affect the other, then that's when this is a good option, parallel. But we're just going to go for superseded today. Okay, so we do have a question from Sachin in the chat here. Sachin asks, under the deployment settings for revision type, do I choose my application is stored in GitHub and give the token I generated? Or do I just provide my S3 bucket URL? Yeah, good question. So I demoed this just a little bit before. And the steps to doing that, Sachin, is you actually go into your bucket and then you copy not your bucket URL, you copy the URL to your artifact. So you actually go to your artifact, find your bucket, open up the bucket, copy the artifact URL. So you select your artifact and you copy it like this. And once it's copied, you paste that. Okay, and that's how you set up the revision settings. Okay, cool beans. So we've got superseded, and let's revise and reflect on what we just learned. CodePipeline offers different execution modes based on how we treat multiple runs of the same pipeline. We chose, what do we choose? We chose superseded. I don't know why that name just gets to me. We chose superseded, which means we will focus on running the, what do we focus on? We're gonna focus on running the latest push that we did, or the latest run that we start. Let's actually do that. We're focused on running the latest run, pipeline run that we start, and cancel the older ones. Other options include queued and parallel, which we don't really need to use, which is cool. Hey, queued and parallel. If you want to add a little explanation though, I feel like I'll feel a little guilty if I don't give this my all. So let me just add a little explanation. So queued is to process every run in the order that we started them. And parallel, which is for running the pipeline, or process both runs at the same time. All right, thank you, team. Oh, and no need to apologize for that, Sachin. That's totally cool. I'm really glad that you're asking these questions. It actually also tells me where I should emphasize in the project guide. So please keep asking. I don't want you to stop asking questions. This has been great. And we got Neo saying day two. Day two? Day two? Day two of what, Neo? I'm curious. Or are you replying to someone? And we got Robot. Hey, you're back. And you changed your profile pic. Robot says, what up, fam? It's been good. It's good to see you too. All right. What? And then we're gonna select next now. Oh, did I do that too quickly? I think I might have. Okay, great. I might have done that too quickly, team. So there is also a new service role that we set up. Okay, and under new service role, let's just keep these default settings. And I just thought it'd be nice to call out the fact that we're looking at service roles for the 4th time. IAM truly is this underlying service that powers the connection between all these tools as well. And it's just a nice reminder to be setting up another role for another service, again, so that it has the access to all of the resources that it needs. Oh, we got the same question about taking a screenshot of the CodePipeline homepage. Is that right? That shouldn't have come up. That's a bit sus, team. If you don't mind, we're just going to take a 3-minute break or a 3-minute recess as I just quickly look into why that popped up again, and let me just try solve it. So, sorry, within the guide, I'm seeing this screenshot one more time, and that shouldn't have happened. I think I might know why. So let me have a quick check of this and solve this issue now for us. Okay. Awesome. I'm just about to fix that up. Thank you so much for your patience, team. And I'm almost done now. I'm almost done fixing this. In the meantime, how's everyone doing? I hope you're all enjoying this project demo so far. We're just at the start of CodePipeline, and yeah, this has been super cool. I think you're gonna love it when you see the way CodePipeline works and how it automates the entire process from writing the code all the way to the deployed app. Okay, sorry about that little error there, team. I think it's just gonna take a little, another minute before my change shows on the website. So let me just move us ahead to the next part, and then we're gonna come back and answer this question later on. It's supposed to be a question about the service role. All right, so we got some advanced settings here that we're gonna ignore actually, but if you're curious, we've got artifact store, which says, hey, where should we store the artifacts that we create in CodePipeline? Because by default, CodePipeline actually saves files created at each stage. It would save a copy of your source code somewhere, it would save a copy of the build artifact somewhere, so that the next stage in the pipeline has access to it. So because of that, we're gonna just keep that default setting, that default S3 bucket, but you can always say, oh, I have a designated S3 bucket for you. And if you do have an S3 bucket that's designated for your pipeline, you can go ahead and choose that. Encryption is all about just making sure that everything that you store here in the artifacts are encrypted. And this just makes sure that while the files are getting transferred from one stage to the next, that no one can really just intercept it and steal your work and steal the files that you create. Variables are also pretty fun. So variables is about saying, what if you want to pass information about one stage of the build to the next? It's not about the files, it's not about the code, but it's more like, what if I want to tell CodeDeploy, this is build number 5 from CodeBuild? That kind of information doesn't get passed automatically. So you can try to pass them from one stage to the next using variables. Okay? All right. And now we're ready to set up the actual settings over here to make sure CodePipeline is set up with GitHub, CodeBuild, and CodeDeploy. Okay, so in this step, we will configure GitHub, CodeBuild, and CodeDeploy in the pipeline. Cool. So now that it's done, let's select done, and let's select the source provider, which is going to be GitHub via the GitHub app, like this. And our connection is going to be Network DevOps CI/CD, our repository, as you might be familiar, is going to be the repository called Network Web Project. So once you've selected that, you can go into a default branch, which is master. And great question from Robot asking about the audio level. I would love to know this too. Am I speaking very quietly? Oof, I hope I'm still live, everyone. Okay, thank you. I think because I was checking my audio issue, I accidentally closed the live, which gave me a mini shock. But now that I'm back on, I think we're okay. Sorry about that, team. Okay, so I hope we're back on, and I hope my audio is okay. Let me see if I can try to speak a bit louder. But yeah, let me know. I'm so open to everyone's feedback. Thank you so much for mentioning this. Okay, so we've got our master branch set up, and okay, and then we're gonna say that webhook events thing, let's keep it this time, because this time we want CodePipeline to automate things, and that's why we're gonna keep that webhook setting. Oh, did I skip something? No, we haven't skipped anything. Okay, so all right, so let's take a screenshot of our source stage and keep a copy of this in our documentation. Feel free to make this screenshot a little bit on the long, like the taller side than the wide side. As after I've created the documentation template, I thought, oh, the screenshot looks best when it's tall. So up to your discretion, but I'm gonna make mine tall. And I think that will look better in my documentation too. All right, so let's now configure the purpose of specifying a branch in the source stage. So in the source stage, which is about where our source code lives, GitHub, the default branch, which is master here, the default branch tells CodePipeline exactly which version of our code we want to use in this workflow. In production environments, you can have many different branches to represent many different versions of your code or your web app. So by specifying a branch, you're making sure that a specific version is getting deployed, not a random branch where you're just experimenting with code. Imagine if you connected your repository over to CodePipeline, and now every single time you're like, oh, let me just test this new color, and you decide to test it and you push that change, and suddenly that change is available to all your users. That would not be nice. So having a specific branch for CodePipeline to focus on is a blessing. This is a good idea. Okay, so the output artifact format, let's keep that default one, which just makes sure that we're gonna be packaging the code as a zip file, and then that code is gonna be handed over to CodeBuild. Okay, so here under webhook events, we're gonna just check here that webhook checkbox. All right, and then this is actually a very important setting, so let's stay here for a little bit, team. Webhook events automatically start your pipeline whenever code is being pushed to the specific branch that you mentioned. So this is what makes your pipeline truly continuous. It reacts to code changes in real time now. It's no longer waiting for you to press okay, I've pressed change my code, CodePipeline please run. You never have to say that anymore. Because there's a webhook, it's almost like there's someone that's always inside your GitHub repository watching for changes in code. And the moment it notices changes in code, it's gonna go call CodePipeline and say, "Oi, mate, like there's been code changes. Let's go trigger this pipeline, and let's go deploy that change straight away." So that's why webhooks are so important. And they kind of just act like notifications to CodePipeline. So the source stage is also where you enable webhook events, which are like notifications. Whenever you make a change to the source code, the webhook event will detect the change and alert CodePipeline to trigger a new run. All right. That's awesome. Okay, very good. You might also notice now that the connection with your source stage is now using that GitHub connection you created. But when we use CodeBuild, CodeBuild was the one with the connection. So what's going on here? If you're curious, it's a little extra for the pros. I didn't include it in the project guide because I thought it might be a bit much because we're changing the way we think about this. But here's a little extra for the pros. When you are using CodePipeline, you are no longer relying on CodeBuild to be the one to connect to your GitHub repository. You now have the source stage, this one, to connect to the GitHub repository, and the source stage is actually going to package up the code to send to CodeBuild to build, which is pretty wild if you think about it. But what's really happening here is CodeBuild will only need the package that's inside your web apps code repository, and CodeBuild is going to open up that buildspec.yaml file and is going to say, "Oh, inside the repository, there's already a page here with instructions on how to build this web app. It's already inside your GitHub repo, so it actually doesn't." CodeBuild doesn't need direct access to GitHub to do this. So once the source stage just passes this file over, GitHub CodeBuild. So once the source stage passes the compressed like web app files over to CodeBuild, CodeBuild opens that package and it sees the build spec, and then it does the full compress. Then there's the full compress that includes all of the packages and all of the dependencies and anything else that CodeDeploy might need to deploy the app. So CodeBuild does the full compression, and then that gets passed on to CodeDeploy. Yeah, which is slightly different than what we've been doing so far. So let's select next. And under the build stage, let's just use other build providers because we're going to be using CodeBuild to build our project. And the project name is nextwork-devops-CI/CD. We set this up in our CodeBuild console. And once that's done, we're going to leave the default settings for environment variables, and we're going to say we just want to do a single build in the same region and using source artifact. Whoa, what's this? So this is an artifact that was passed by the previous stage. So the previous stage, you know how it compresses your web app code into like a small thing and passes it to CodeBuild. CodeBuild is now saying, I'm going to grab this from the previous stage. Okay, it says defined by source. So the source stage is going to create it, pass it to the build stage, and the build stage is going to use it. And inside is a zip file containing the source code that was outputted by the source stage. So let's take a screenshot of the build stage here. Again, you can feel free to take like a taller screenshot. And let's move on. What do you guys think about the explanations for the source stage and the build stage? How's that going? Is that confusing? Is it a little bit much? Let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback. Alrighty, team. The build stage sets up how we'll build our web app and make it ready for deployment. We configured we configured CodeBuild to be our build provider and to use the input artifacts that was outputted by the source stage. The input artifact for the build stage, the input artifact is the compressed code that the source stage retrieved from GitHub and compressed into a zip file. Okay, all done. So let's go. That's it for the build stage. Next up is the test stage. Oh, that's neat to us. So we haven't actually set up the test stage in this project, in this 7-day DevOps challenge. So we're actually about to skip the test stage. But you know what? So interesting to look at test providers, and you're going to notice that CodeBuild is actually a test provider. We simply haven't set it up to become one. So if you have done the secret mission for the CodeBuild project, so if you've done day 4 of the 7-day DevOps challenge and you've done the secret mission, you're going to notice that you actually learn how to set CodeBuild up for testing in that secret mission too. So if you'd like to challenge yourself a little bit more, you can go back to that secret mission, set up CodeBuild for testing, come back here and make CodeBuild your test provider, and then you have a full CodePipeline set up. Now, we don't do this by default because testing is optional for this project, and in this case, I thought it would be good to still mention that testing is still super crucial in real-world applications. There's different kinds of tests that you can run, like unit tests, which is about, can we just test that this small piece of code that we've created is working? There's integration test, which is saying, okay, this piece of code is now working. Can we now see if this piece of code still works with our existing code base? Check it in, see if they integrate. Then we've got UI tests, which is saying, okay, does the user interface actually look like what we expect when we built this? Which is yeah, quite a great test to run, because UI tests have been pretty funny in my experience when I've tried to run UI tests myself, and I'm like, oh, that does not look like what I thought it would look like when I first created this. But yes, now that we've talked about testing, we can safely skip the test stage. So please skip it, and you're going to be in the deploy stage next. Okay. So in the deploy stage, what you can do here is you can actually just set it up to use CodeDeploy, which you should be very familiar with, and the input artifact is now the build artifact that CodeBuild makes. I hope that's clear. Just like how in our original setup, CodeDeploy manually grabs the CodeBuild file from the S3 bucket, in this case, we're setting up CodeDeploy in this pipeline to automatically grab whatever build artifact the build stage creates. The application name is going to be, again, next to DevOps CI/CD, and the deployment group is going to use the default deployment group that we set up. Okay. Here, we're also going to say that we're going to just automatically roll things back if the stage fails. It's very common for deployment to fail because of a difference in the scripts, maybe something that was updated in your local environment somehow was not updated in the deployment environment. So it's very common for any failures, and you just really don't want those failures to reach your users. And that's why you can have automatic rollbacks to prevent them from happening. Okay. So let's head next, and we're now ready to review. Very good. I'm just going to take a quick screenshot of the deploy stage though before I'm done, and we'll move on to the next page. Okay, the deploy stage is where we set up CodeDeploy to be our deployment provider. for example, actually it will say it takes the build artifact from CodeBuild and the application and deployment settings that we've defined in our deployment group. Great. So let's go, let's hit done, and let's hit next. Ooh, awesome work. You've just configured the deploy stage, and now you're just one step away from creating your pipeline, which is awesome. Robot has a great question today. He asks, where is it deploying to? EC2, is it Fargate? The answer is EC2, Robot. So if you were to check this out actually. So CodeDeploy deploys the web app over to an EC2 instance. Okay, and we've set this up in our CodeDeploy deployment group as well. The deployment group and the application itself in CodeDeploy says we use EC2. So that's going to be the infrastructure for our deployment. All right. Okay, so we're now on step 7, second to last step, everyone. Pretty cool. We're going to run the pipeline now. So we're going to watch our pipeline run for the first time, and this is going to help us verify that everything is working correctly. In this step, we're going to just finish creating the pipeline, and then we're going to watch the pipeline start up and connect all of these different pieces of our pipeline together, which is going to be a lot of fun. So in this step, we will finish creating our pipeline and watch it do its first run, which connects together all the different stages that we've set up. So good. So let's select done here, and let's just take a second to review our pipeline together now. We're going to confirm that our pipeline settings uses this pipeline name. Nice. It uses a V2 pipeline type. The execution mode is superseded. The artifact store location is a new Amazon S3 bucket. And what else? That there should be a new service role. Cool. So that looks all good to me. And that means we can move on to just checking off the source stage. So the source stage settings should use GitHub via GitHub app. It should say output artifact format is a code zip file. Detect changes? True, we have a webhook set up, so please do detect changes for us. And here is the connection to our GitHub repository. There should be a code connection ARN. The full repository ID should mention Nextwork Web Project. And then we have a default branch that should say master, unless you're using a different branch. Now, enable automatic retry. Let's just enable that too. Cool. And now for the build stage, we got CodeBuild, the build project that we've named Nextwork DevOps CI/CD, and we've also enabled it to retry on stage failure. Okay. And CodeDeploy is the only one that looks a little bit different for the bottom two. You know, here it says automatic retry on stage failure. Deploy says automatic rollback on stage failure because, you know, we don't want any of our users to see a failed deployment. So automatic rollback is the case for CodeDeploy. Otherwise, everything looks great. We're going to use CodeDeploy. We're going to call our application. We're going to use the application that we've already set up and the deployment group that we've already set up. Check, check, done. So this is cool. Those are a lot of settings that we just went through. So let's do a quick recap. The 3 stages we've set up in our CI/CD pipeline, our source. And what is source? Source is the source code for our web project in GitHub. Then we've got, what else? We've got the build stage, which is building the web app using CodeBuild. What else? We've got the deploy stage, which is about deploying changes to our web app using CodeDeploy. Nice. So now that that's done, let's hit done, and we've finished reviewing our pipeline so we can create it now. Okay. Ooh, it's gonna take a second or two, I think, for it to finish creating. Ta-da! And this is our pipeline. Look at our pipeline looking pretty cool here, isn't it? We've got the source stage set up, the build stage set up, and the deploy stage set up. By default, they're all just starting up for the first time right now. So source is in progress, and it's already green, which means that it has fully loaded the latest code in your GitHub repository, and it's passed it on now to build stage to start building that code before CodeDeploy will deploy those changes. So these different colors do represent different stages. Gray is like it's never started, blue is in progress, green is completed successfully, and red is a failure. Robot has asked a great question today. Is there like a JSON or YAML file that contains the pipeline definition? Yes, you can actually define your code pipeline in, I think, in YAML. In fact, I wonder if this is something I can ask my next week project. Let's see. Is it possible? Oh, or did you want a JSON or YAML file for my pipeline definition? Or are you asking for pipeline definitions in general? Is it possible to turn a pipeline definition into a JSON or a YAML file? Let's see. Oh, in general. Great, 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 great. Yes, it is. So this is our next week project giving you an answer today, Robot. It is possible to define a code pipeline using a JSON or a YAML file. This allows you to manage your pipeline infrastructure as code. And this is an example of how you can define that pipeline using YAML like this. Pretty cool, eh? Really, really cool to see the way that you can just define the stages like this inside a template. Good to know. Great work. So source, build, and deploy has all worked in the last like 2 minutes, which is pretty wild. But I think what we're going to want to do is just explore a little bit before we try to move on to the next step. So even if it's all green, just make sure you got to explore because we've got the executions tab here. We've got the executions tab, and it actually tells you every single time your pipeline runs. In this case, it always uses a trigger, and that trigger is always a change to your code. We didn't change our code in the last minute, but because we're starting up this pipeline for the first time, CodePipeline decides to just use your latest commit as the trigger. So you can see that there is this execution, this certain run that's just happened. That was a success. And you can even click into the pipeline and then click on specific parts of your, like the source ID, for example. Click on that. Okay, and once you've clicked on it, you can even see like a summary as well of this specific run, a timeline of this specific run, you know, source, build, deploy, success, variables that you might have passed, which we didn't use, and even the revisions. So you can even click on revisions, open the revision like this, click on that. And that takes you to the code, to the GitHub repository. Pretty cool, right? So you can literally just click here to get taken all the way to the code commit or the push that triggered this run. So well done. It's like so connected. You know, it just makes you feel cool looking at it. All right, so let's take a screenshot of all 3 stages of our pipeline looking nice together. And put that in our project guide. And then we're going to mention a few words about what we just saw. CodePipeline organized the 3 stages into a single diagram that showcases the flow of changes from source to deploy. In each stage, you can see more details on, so in our case, you can see more details on the pipeline execution that it belongs to, and the service, e.g. GitHub, and I'll say and shorthand links or shortcuts to the connected service. Great, all done. Okay, so let's test our pipeline now. It is time for the ultimate test for this project. We're gonna see how CodePipeline handles a change in our code. This is the final step of this project. I hope you have lots of fun doing this with me, and let's give it a go. In this step, we will release a change in our source code. We'll see how CodePipeline reacts to that change. It should automatically build and deploy my code changes. Okay, that's how we know CodePipeline works. It should really automate that flow from the moment you push the changes to your code. So let's give that a go. Now let's test our pipeline by doing this. We're going to go back into our VS Code terminal. It feels like it's been a long time since we were back here, but we're going to go ahead and add a new line by going into index.jsp like this. And then we're going to add a new line that says, if you see this line, that means your changes are automatically deployed into production. Okay, so we've got this change. Let's save it. So Command S or Control S is how you can save your changes. And then we're going to go into our terminal to push those changes. So we're going to say git add, git commit, and the commit message is going to say update index.jsp line with a new line to test CodePipeline. Okay, so once that commit message is done, you can try push. Shall we try? Let's go git push. And I have my classic error. I've been running into this error for a little bit, haven't I? So I've gone into the same error with GitHub over the last 3 projects maybe. So I'm not even too worried anymore. The first time, I was pretty worried. But now I'm quite familiar with this error. And I'm going to make sure that we add that to the project guide in step 8 as well. But I did add help for this here. And if you run into any errors when pushing your code, all you have to do is just tell your GitHub terminal to forget any permissions or credentials that it might already have. We're going to say, hey, just forget everything that you know about credentials. We're going to reset our credentials. So go ahead and run this last command, this last line that says, all right, we're going to make your GitHub repository. We're going to connect your local instance, your EC2 instance, to your GitHub terminal again, but this time force a login to happen. And by forcing a login, you're pretty much just making sure that you are gonna tell GitHub that you do have access. You know, you shouldn't be getting a silly little, I want to say a silly little permissions error. It just feels so unfair. You're like, hey, I literally created this. How dare you? But yeah, you can go your GitHub username / the project repository again, and then .git. Just like that. And if you wanted to see that command a bit more up close, that's what it looks like. Oh, too up close. Yeah, so we've got next week web project, git remote, set URL origin, and then you put in your username after HTTPS at github.com/username/project repo name.git. Okay, so we've just done that. And then we're now going to try push our changes again. Run git push again, please. And here we get asked for a password. So this is where you're just going to quickly run over to GitHub and go into settings. This is only if you run into the error, by the way. If you don't have the error, you don't have to do it. I'm just trying to resolve an error with permissions when I push changes. But if you could push your changes fine, then you're all good. All right, so we're gonna say generated for our EC2 instance to push a code change and trigger CodePipeline. All right, it's gonna be under the repo scope to just make sure this token lets our EC2 instance update changes to a repository. So let's generate the token now, and let's use this inside here, the password field. So I'm gonna push that. Ta-da, all done. So we've pushed our changes. You should be able to go into your GitHub repository and have a look. So go back into your GitHub repository, this page here. Go into your web apps files, and you should see this new line. Aha! Your latest changes are automatically deployed into production by CodePipeline, if you can see this line. Well, this is true if you can see this line in the live web app. We are seeing the change in our source code. It's not in our live web app yet. So we're gonna wanna see if our CodePipeline is gonna respond to it. Now, how you double check is by going back into your CodePipeline console and see what happens. Let's go. So this is my pipeline. And yeah, like Gangadhar's asked, CodePipeline will trigger now? Yeah, it will, because I pushed code to my repository, and that actually triggered the webhook to wake up and say, there's been a code change. CodePipeline, wake up! Build and deploy the changes. That's like what the webhook event is doing. So I literally didn't have to click on anything just now. I simply went back to my pipeline, and you can see it's already working. It's already starting to build the change. It's already starting to deploy the change. You can actually even see it if you were to go down here, and you know how it says source? Open this thing here. Update index.jsp with a new line to test CodePipeline. Does that line sound familiar? I hope it does. So you can see that now even CodeDeploy has that commit message at the bottom. Okay, but previously it didn't. But that commit message is familiar because that was the commit message we just wrote here. Update index.jsp with a new line to test CodePipeline. So you can see that it's that recent commit, that recent change that's being pushed across our pipeline now. All right, so since our CI/CD pipeline gets triggered by code changes and the webhook events, we tested our pipeline by updating our code. This means we added a new line to our web apps index.jsp file and push those changes too. Okay, great. Done. So we saw that execution, we saw the way the commit message updated. It's crazy. You can even see, like, if you were to just click on that source link again, you can see your GitHub repository. Ta-da! And also the commit message that says if you see this line, that means your latest changes are automatically deployed. Very cool. So how did your pipeline respond to the code change? Ooh, the moment we pushed the code change, CodePipeline responded immediately by triggering a new build and deploy stage. The commit message under each stage reflects the latest code change that they're using. So the source stage was the first stage to reflect my latest commit message. And eventually, the build and deployed stage said the same thing too. Awesome. Okay, so now that the deployment is done, shall we try accessing the web app? Click into your web app by clicking into this little deploy bubble here. Okay, and it's gonna take you to this focus on your deployment. It says your deployment has succeeded, and there's even a message that you can view the execution details, which is pretty cool. Now you can actually click on the deployment, which is the deployment ID. And here you get taken to that code deploy page that says your deployment was a success. Okay, so here's where you can also get taken straight to your instance ID if you need to find it again. And then you can open up the IPv4 DNS of that EC2 instance. If you were curious why I have two here, again, just for anyone that might have skipped ahead and wonder why you have two, I have two lifecycle events. So I had my first run when I first created the pipeline, and then the second run from my recent change. But what I also wanted to mention is you might have seen two, I think this is also it. Yeah, actually, this is also it. You will also see that I have two rows here because I have two instances. Actually, sorry. The two rows is because of having two separate instances, and that's because I deployed my CloudFormation template twice. You should only see one row. If you only see one row, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so I found my deployment instance. It comes with a public IPv4 DNS, and I also have a copy of that here. So you can actually just refresh it if you still have that tab open, and ta-da! You can see that the changes are now live without me having to do another build and another deployment. it just automated it for me. So I put a link in the chat so you can refresh that, and you can see that if you see this line, your latest changes are automatically deployed into production by CodePipeline. So that is a successful pipeline setup, team. Let's take a screenshot and move on. What do you think, everyone? Isn't it so cool to see a successful deployment just automatically happen? All I had to do was change my code and the deployment went through. It's crazy. All right, so what happened next? Oh, I might need to refresh my tab. Gangara says that's crazy. No, actually, isn't it? You know what? Just for fun, I think I can do this. Let me go back into my web app file. And I'm gonna say Gangara thinks this is crazy. And let me just save that. Save that, push that, and put in my token one more time. Here. Okay, I pushed it again, Gangada. So if we were to just refresh your page in like a few minutes, you might, maybe less than a few minutes, you might just see your name pop up in my updated web app without me having to build and deploy it again. So cool, eh? So speedy. But let me go back down. And okay, I think I should just stay on track. Keep going back. Okay, good. Okay, so we just wanted to do one last answer. It says, once our pipeline ran successfully. Oh, it's my keyboard. Oh, no, it's not my keyboard, it's working. Okay, once our pipeline ran successfully, we checked our live web app and can confirm that it updated without us having to manually adjust anything. Without having to manually, sorry, I meant not manually adjust anything, I meant manually rebuild our project in CodeBuild and redeploy the project in CodeDeploy. The changes went live into production straight away. Awesome. John says, are you streaming on Twitch? Yes, we are, but I feel like my Twitch connection for this stream got cut off. I don't think it actually went through. There was an error as I went live, and I thought, oh, okay, we'll just go live, but there's something for me to fix about our Twitch connection, I think. We are on Twitch though, if that was the question you were asking there. Let me send you our Twitch link in the chat if you wanted that. Let's see. Okay, I sent it to you now, John. All right. Oh, that is not the right link. I don't know what I copied there, John, but that is not my Twitch link. Oopsie daisies. Let me just copy that one more time. I think my copy paste is a little strange today. It was so strange all morning as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if something's gone wrong. But we are called Next Week Projects on Twitch. So I'll just type this manually. Why not? All right. So Unreal, your CI/CD pipeline, is now automatically building and deploying your web app whenever you push changes to GitHub. That is a wrap for the entire DevOps challenge. Thank you so much. If you made it here, that's crazy. And you should be so proud of yourself for setting up this pipeline. Now, I do have a secret mission for everyone that's on the expert side and want to see something extra, because I thought this thing is really cool. I would love for you to try it, and it's about triggering a rollback in CodePipeline. So it's an emergency procedure that happens sometimes. Let's say you triggered a rollback. Oh my god, I gave you the GitHub token. Okay, definitely should not be throwing this around. Thank you so much. Let me just delete this now. Why is my copy paste trying to sabotage me today? That is unreal. Thank you so much for mentioning this. That I put my GitHub token in the chat. Yeah, I owe you one, Kahinda, for mentioning that. Thank you. All right, so we are triggering a rollback for the secret mission now, and it's going to give you some hands-on experience with a really, really critical procedure, because a lot of the time a deployment fails and you do not want that deployment to get in the hands of your users. But sometimes the deployment works and then the app that shows up for your users is not what it's supposed to look like. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe they actually pass all of the tests. Technically it works, but the moment you see it live, you're like, users should not be seeing this. Rollback, rollback, rollback. So we're going to be triggering a rollback manually in CodePipeline today. And this is great for disaster recovery. This is great for whenever you say, actually, this is not a good call. Our users should not be seeing this updated version. So let's go back to our pipeline in CodePipeline. Let's visit CodePipeline here. Select pipelines and select the pipeline we've created together. So select this one. And notice that you have a deploy stage over here, and you can open up a rollback. Oh, okay. So I got confused for a second there, but you can click into your rollback. Oh, you can click into the rollback, and then you can click Start Rollback from the menu. So click here, Start Rollback. And then it's going to say, what version do you want to go back to? Do you want to go back to the version where you just updated index.jsp, or do you want to go back to the version where you just added CodeDeploy files? This looks a bit different for myself compared to you, because I made a new change recently where I said Gangada thinks this is crazy. Okay, so I made this extra commit, this extra push, but I think if you're doing this project, you should only see one version, which is the added CodeDeploy files. So let's do that one. So let's do this one, and let's start a rollback. Okay, so all we got to do is click Start Rollback here, and you're going to see a rollback start to happen. Okay, it's in progress now, but in our pipeline, you can see a red rollback. Interesting. Okay, let's talk about what a rollback is and our secret mission in the meantime. In a project extension, we initiated a rollback on the deploy stage. Automatic rollback is important for situations where you've deployed a change that passed tests but is actually failing or does not look the way it should. Okay, so let's put that through. And in our rollback 2, we have just done this rollback already. We started it, all good. And you can see that now our deploy stage has a different commit message compared to the build stage and compared to the source stage. So our build stage is still saying updated and indexed, updated index.jsp again for fun. This is the Gangadar thinks this is crazy change that I made. And then we've got CodeDeploy now saying added CodeDeploy file. So they're in like different stages of life right now. And this is actually really helpful in scenarios where actually, you know, what you've created in source and build are correct, but actually there are just some settings in your deployment group that you need to update, and that doesn't touch source and build at all. So let's say you updated your deployment settings, it looks okay now. And in the meantime, we'll just check your web app. So let's refresh this. And as you can see, the lines are gone. The lines that I added in my last 2 commits have disappeared because they've deployed to the first version of my web app. Crazy. You can also take a screenshot of CodeDeploy with that rollback indication. I actually quite like this screenshot. I think I'll go for this one instead. So I'll go like this. All right. During the rollback, the source and build stage are unaffected. Because both stages come before deployment. We could verify this by comparing the commit messages related to each stage. The deploy stage commit message has reverted back to, what has it reverted back to? It has reverted back to the first commit has reverted back to the commit attached to my first pipeline run. The other 2 stages are still using my latest commit messages. Great. All done. So let's roll back. Let's verify the rollback, and you can see the lines were gone. So we can say after rollback, the live web app reverted back to its original state before we did any tests for changes. This means CodeDeploy rolled back successfully and instantly too. What a vibe. What you saw just now is how CodePipeline can automatically go back to a previous version in case of any deployment failures. So as a bonus, if you'd like, you can even try to release changes from the source stage. So if you want to do that, you can go source. And I think, oh, I realized that the rollback, I think, might have changed recently, because I used to be able to roll back to a previous version from the source stage, but I just realized that might have changed recently because CodePipeline had an update. Oh, I think it updated. Damn. Interesting. So I think a rollback is still possible. I'd like to think so, but maybe not as easy as it used to. Interesting. Something for me to figure out. Maybe the rollback has to happen within GitHub. So instead of now letting CodePipeline roll back in the source stage, you have to roll back in GitHub now to complete a rollback. But you can roll back from the build stage. You can start rollback here. And then you can roll back your build to a previous version as well. And if I were to roll back my build to this middle version, update index.jsp with a new line and I start rollback like this, then you're gonna see that build technically rolled back, but then the deploy one is gonna update to whatever build is now using. So your deploy is going to now update again to be that version where there was like that second line here or that third line here. It's not the line that says Gangada thinks it's crazy, it's the line before that. I think that's gonna come back because CodeBuild is updating to that version. You know, so what a vibe. I'm just gonna leave this here. Today, you can now start to wrap up everything for the 7-day DevOps challenge by deleting your resources. You can start by deleting your CloudFormation stacks, and then you can delete your everything else that's on this list, depending on what you have left. Because the thing is, if you have a CloudFormation stack that you created in the previous project, that's gonna automatically delete a lot of the resources that we're about to go through. So I would like to say that delete everything that's in a stack first, and then once you're done, make sure to, delete everything in that stack first, and then make sure to go through this list still to just say, okay, is that deleted now? Has it been covered by the stack or no? Okay, so we've got our rollback that worked. So we've rolled back the build stage to the version where we have that line in the middle, but I don't think it's gonna go through actually because of the CodePipeline update. I think it's only gonna go through if you wanna click release change like this. And then you release a change by picking the right commit from your commit history. So release change is gonna say, let's update all 3 stages to this commit. And then when I release it, then you'll see CodeDeploy update. Wow, so this is the latest changes, huh, with CodePipeline. I thought I was up to date, but I've just gotten a reminder that there's been a few changes to CodePipeline. So if you want to see CodeDeploy go back to the version where we had like 2 lines here, you don't like start a rollback here. You go release change, and then you release a change based on the commit message. So it's just this one, updated index.jsp again for fun. And then you're done. Okay, but I'm gonna go ahead with our deletion steps. So I'm gonna start by deleting our deployment environments. So I'm gonna delete that. And I'm gonna delete that pesky other one that I keep forgetting to delete. I'm gonna delete this one too. Okay, so that's our CloudFormation stacks done. I didn't deploy my stack from project 6 of this series, so I will still have to delete everything manually here. If you deployed a lot of your architecture using that CloudFormation template from project 6, then the rest of these steps is going to be very easy to you. They might already be deleted. You just have to double check. Okay, so now that the pipeline, we've learned a lot about it. I'm pretty happy with all of our learnings. I'm ready to delete my pipeline and conclude this project. So let's delete pipeline now. And then we're going to go ahead and delete our CodeDeploy application. Then we've got CodeBuild, so we're going to delete our build project. And we've got CodeArtifact. Let's delete our CodeArtifact repository. Of course, our CodeArtifact domain as well, so we're really going through it today. Actually, I forgot to mention this, but I'd highly recommend pausing and just trying to delete as many of these resources as you can on your own, because deleting stuff is just as important as creating them. Otherwise, we're racking up charges today. So let's go ahead and delete everything, including IAM resources. So let's delete our AWS CodeDeploy role. What other roles have we created? I like to go just search code like this, and that usually gives me a lot of roles that I can delete. Okay, I think I can delete all of these. I might just refresh and see if there's anything else. CodePipeline as well. So let's select all of these and delete all of them. And we got our policy that we can delete. So our policies, again, we can search code like this and then delete them off. And we'll just have to delete every single policy. Cool, let's delete this one too. Let's delete the CloudWatch logs policy. And then the code connection policy is up for deleting as well. So let's delete that too. Nice, all done. Well done. So all of these policies are deleted now. I think there is still one more role to delete. I just realized our EC2 instance has a special name that doesn't reference role. So let me just use EC2 instance. This is the run. This is the one that we should delete. Okay. And I just noticed that there's another CodeDeploy role that I probably don't need. So I'm going to delete that too. And yeah, Gangada is going to implement the code pipeline today. Nice. Is deleting the stack deleting all the resources related to that? Correct. So if you delete your CloudFormation stack, you don't need to delete any of the resources that were inside that stack. And that's the reason why CloudFormation saves you so much time, because I'm just manually deleting things now, but I would already be well past finished with deleting, I think, if I had used my CloudFormation template to launch the resources. So it's a huge time saver. I highly recommend checking out that CloudFormation project. And of course, we've got our development instance to terminate. So let's terminate that. And I see that we still have the EC2 instance from the CloudFormation template. But do you see how it says terminated? So it's already been terminated, Gangada, because I deleted the CloudFormation template, which would have gone and terminated this instance too. That's pretty cool. Okay, so EC2 done. Now we've got S3. We've got this bucket here that's for our build artifacts. It's called nextwork-devops-cicd-your name. This is the bucket for your build artifacts. And we gotta empty that bucket first. So empty your bucket's contents. And then we're gonna go ahead and look for other buckets that were created. So filter your buckets by creation date and just see what was the latest buckets that were created. Because there is another one that was created, it seems. Oh, this is the bucket I need to delete. Never mind. So select this bucket and delete it. Okay, and delete that bucket. Sometimes CloudFormation also has a CodePipeline also has a bucket, so watch out for that. So I've got a CodePipeline bucket here because CodePipeline also created build artifacts. So we're going to select that. Delete everything that's inside the bucket. And then delete the bucket itself. So let's go back to our buckets page and make sure you're just deleting the buckets because you can tell based on what day it is today and whether or not it matches up. So I'm just going to delete my CodePipeline bucket. Okay, so CodePipeline also finished. What else? IAM policies done, developments is done. I think we've deleted everything. We've also deleted our GitHub token, which is great. And you can also delete You can also delete your private key file from your local computer for security too. Yep. Terminated. Okay, cool. Cool. So my instance should be all done. I think this instance is the actual one that I ran today, so I'm gonna quickly terminate that too. I have too many instances with the same name, which confuses me sometimes. But the reason why I figured that maybe I had the wrong one was because I started shutting down another instance, but for some reason it seems like I'm still EC2 SSH connected. You can tell your instance has truly, like, you know, gotten terminated if you can no longer connect to your EC2 instance via SSH. So I have a feeling I'm running into that error now, which is what we want to see. Good. I'm also going to go ahead and delete my private key file. So from here, find the DevOps folder, delete it, done. Okay, and once that's deleted, you should see that's disconnected now because our EC2 instance is gone. So you can also just quit VS Code because you're finished. Done. Okay, we've officially cleared everything. So let's do our final reflection and wrap up for the day. Oh, my hair's funny. All right, so services we used were, too many to count. Services we used, oh, I seem to be stuck. Services we used were CodePipeline, CodeDeploy, CodeBuild, CodeArtifact, GitHub, VS Code, EC2, S3, CloudFormation, IAM, crazy. Key concepts we learned include the different stages in a CI/CD pipeline, handling rollbacks, and webhooks. This project took us approximately, I would say, 3 hours, including demo time. Yeah, about 3 hours. The most challenging part, I would say, this project was actually quite good, honestly. So what could have been challenging? Maybe pushing our code changes and then getting another GitHub token. It was most rewarding to see our live deployed web app update without us having to build and deploy our project ourselves. Great. Awesome. So we did this project today to complete the 7-day DevOps challenge. What a week. Learned a lot and built a lot. So well done on completing the 7-day DevOps challenge. Are there any other projects or series you'd like to see at NextWork? What could make learning an even better experience for you? So this is just an open question from us to you. And you can say, I would like to see, maybe you'd like to see, what's a common request that I get? I would like to see the ability to do more. I would like to see the ability to retry a project with new tasks and screenshots. That's a request we do get a lot. When anyone wants to do a project one more time, they're like, how can I clear all my tasks and restart from the top? Great question, and more coming soon. All right, and debuting the NextWork quiz. So with every single project now, there is a quiz that you can take to learn more about the concepts from this project. So shall we take the quiz and have a go? So let's see whether you've got the answers to this one too. Which execution mode in AWS CodePipeline cancels the currently running execution when a new execution is triggered? Is it A, superseded, B, manual, C, queued, or D, parallel? Dun dun dun. What was it? Do you remember? I think it's A, superseded. Yeah. Next question. Which AWS service is typically used in the build stage of a code pipeline to compile source code and run tests? Oof, I'd be a little bit embarrassed if I got this one wrong, but I think it really should be CodeBuild that we use in the build stage. Very nice. What is the primary purpose of AWS CodePipeline? Is it to perform security audits? Is it to automate the software release process? Did we just use it to manage AWS infrastructure? Was that how we used it? Or do we use it to monitor application performance? Ooh. What is this one, team? What would you answer? I'll give you 10 seconds. Whew, all right. We did use it to automate the software release process, so I'm gonna go with B. Perfect. And we've got question 4. In AWS CodePipeline, which stage is responsible for fetching the latest code changes from a repo? Ooh, which stage was it that we used to fetch code changes? Was it A, CodeDeploy, B, build? Was it the source stage? Was it the test stage? Wow, Kahinda has been nailing it. Great answer so far. Thank you so much. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It was the source stage that fetches the latest code changes. That's right. Last question, team. What does the configure automatic rollback on stage failure option do? Ooh, what does that option do? Does it scan for security vulnerabilities? Does it scale your resources? Aggregate logs? Does it automatically revert to the last successful deployment? What does this option do in CodePipeline? Whoa! Configure automatic rollback on stage failure. Was that A, B, C, or D? This is fun. All right, team. It's D. We automatically revert to the last successful deployment. And that is just such a good tool inside CodePipeline. I love that if there was a failure in our deployment, we can go back to the last successful one. Very nice. Yo, we mastered it. And do you know what's cool? You can just generate a new quiz if you got 5 out of 5 correct. So we had such perfect teamwork. We got 5 out of 5 correct. You can actually click here and generate a new quiz for the next one. So this is a special new feature we've released for NextWork Pro. If you like it, just know that it's now in every single project at NextWork. Pretty cool. Okay. So that's a wrap for today, everyone. We've built a fully functional CI/CD pipeline today, and we did it all with AWS services, plus the handy help of GitHub. That was a lot of fun. Whew, we really did all of this, huh? From projects 1 to 7. We started with our EC2 instance, we went to GitHub, CodeArtifact, CodeBuild, CodeDeploy, we did CloudFormation, and now CodePipeline. Aww, it's been an amazing week. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. You've learned how to do some amazing things across this series, across this project. You've learned how to set up a CodePipeline pipeline in this project. You configured the source stage, the build stage, the deploy, and you even tested rollback functionality with me in this secret mission. So thank you so much for spending the time with me. I think we actually might have one more task to complete because there was that one task that wasn't showing up. Oh yeah, and we'll just quickly answer that and generate our documentation. The question was about service role. So that we can mention that a service role gets automatically created during setup so that CodePipeline has access to the resources it needs to coordinate the different stages, i.e. access to code connection, to connect to GitHub. What else? Access to CodeBuild and S3 to store artifacts. You know, so many examples of what we would need service roles for. So that's a great question. Mission accomplished today. And I'm so excited to be generating documentation. This one's going to be a banging one, guys. Awesome documentation is going to come your way in a second. In the meantime, a big thank you to Kehinde for saying thank you, Nat, and the entire NextWork team. Tintamol AI Studio, that's so sweet. I'm so happy to hear you've been here the whole time. And I just want to shout out Niobi, Kehinde. I was so shocked. I'm like, everyone, we've been here from the first minute of the live, and we're here and we've created our pipelines, and this is so cool. Thank you so much. This is so cool, everyone. Thanks for taking part in the quiz. I will definitely be doing more quiz time in all of the future lives. Aww, I'm glad to hear that it's been a great series. I'm glad to hear you've learned a lot. Thank you so much. Niobi, I hope you enjoy some proper sleep. After this week, you've spent a lot of good energy on this series this week. I can't wait to see your documentation when you finish the pipeline, man. It's going to be amazing. Awesome. Excited for upcoming projects as well. Yeah, Gengada, you got to submit those project requests at the very last question. I'll be very, very interested in what everyone asks for. Oh, our documentation is still taking its time today. Oh, is my documentation showing? Let me see. Is my documentation showing? Hey, I want to see my last documentation. Come on, come on, come on. Surely, come on, surely. I hope it works. If it doesn't, that's okay. I can send a link to my documentation at the end of this live. Oh, I think it's working. All right. Save it as a PDF, please. Let's save in dark mode. Save it. And let's generate our LinkedIn post in the meantime. So good. Very, very, very nice. Day 7 of the 7-day DevOps challenge done. This is what we did across the 7-day DevOps challenge. Check out my documentation to see how I built this. And you can even attach your PDF documentation. So let's attach it here. Yo. You can also see a copy of your documentation here. Whew, look at that. We built a CI/CD pipeline for sure today. It looks beautiful. Got CodePipeline, CI/CD stages, the source stage, the build stage, the deploy stage, and a weapon success, okay, for our deployment. And there's even how we tested the pipeline, which is pretty cool. Awesome, everyone. Well, that's truly a wrap for today now. Once you've uploaded your LinkedIn post, don't forget to give it a title and then post it straight away. So you would just give a title by going up here. And then when that's finished loading, you can click done and then post your project straight away. Woo! Awesome, everyone. I'll see you all in the next few projects. I'm sure we have so many more coming up ahead. I can't wait to see you around in the Nextweek community. Do post as you complete this project. And thank you so much for spending the last week with me. That's been an amazing, amazing week. I wouldn't have it any other way. And you've all just been amazing. So thank you so much. And I'll catch you all next time. Bye. Thank you. Congratulations on finishing the challenge. Bye, everyone.